The Ohio State Buckeyes on to the Big Ten championship game. Rules were made to be massaged, minimums meant to be waived. There. Also, what Illinois did to Duke and what it has Coach K thinking with this panel.
Coming crazy, baby.
We start with Ohio State on to the Big Ten championship, question mark. Conference expected to waive its 6-game minimum, the long-held rule they came up with about a month ago. This is, of course, about money, but also about the eyeball test. That Ohio State is the best team in this conference. Everyone knows that, so we try to move forward. Sarah Spain, around the horn to you. Is this the fair and proper end result?
Well, you already mentioned why we're playing football at all this season, which is money. So the Big Ten needs to send its best representative to this game so they have the best shot of reaffirming their spot in the playoffs so that all of them get a percentage of the money that you earn when someone from your conference is in the playoff. That's it. And if you got there in a season with a giant asterisk where games couldn't be played not by fault of Ohio State, then why do you want to be there? Is it really going to benefit your program that much this year to get that slot when you haven't really earned it? And I usually am a stickler for the rules, Tony. You know that. But I just think in this case, you made up that rule arbitrarily when the season started late. You can change whatever arbitrarily made rules you want in order to make the best team get the slot that they've earned as best they could this year, considering all the circumstances.
Tim Kalishaw, fair and proper result?
I'm afraid it is. As much as Indiana Northwestern sounds very appealing in a strange way for a conference title game, the whole thing about the college football playoff is 4 best teams. We've had this argument before. Yeah. Are the 4 most deserving teams? No, they will take teams that don't even qualify for a conference championship game like Alabama and Ohio State in the past and throw them in there because they're 4 of the best. And Ohio State's one of the 4 best. This rule that they're changing, when did they make this rule? In June? July? I mean, it's a rule they guessed at, and so it's not like some great tradition is being breached here.
Clinton Yates?
Yeah, this isn't that difficult to delineate, in my opinion. Ohio State probably deserves to go to the playoff, and Indiana deserves to play for the Big Ten title. That game is in Indiana. You're letting families there. It's an experience worth having. They're one of 3 teams in the country that's beaten a handful of top 25 teams that are ranked. So yeah, they deserve to play for that. But overall, if you're the conference, you want your best person representing you, and that's Ohio State. This is no different to me than some team winning a conference title in basketball and not being a number 1 seed overall. I know that it sort of tears apart the fabric of whatever the playoff is supposed to be, but it's 2020. Okay. We can figure this out, and it's not that hard to determine.
Just to put a finer point on it, you don't believe Ohio State should be playing for the conference championship. You think they should be? I don't have an issue with Ohio State going to play in the playoff without playing in the Big Ten conference title, considering how well Indiana has played this year in that conference and where the game is. And Indiana did play very, very well this year. They also very well lost to Ohio State. Now we'll go to Frank Isola.
Is it fair? Of course it isn't fair. It's not fair for Northwestern, Florida, Cincinnati, name all the teams, Texas A&M. To them, they think the fix is in for the Ohio State University. And of course, this is about the Big Ten wanting to get their team that they believe has a chance. So 6 games is a bare minimum, I would think. Maybe with 5 games, they wouldn't get in. Because if I'm Texas A&M, I'm Florida. I'm thinking, forget Ohio State with 5 wins. Put me in there. And if I'm Cincinnati, I'm upset. But that's why they're playing this game, to get them in there, to get to 6 games at least.
I sense you're all saying this Sarah, you are a stickler for the rules. You are a resident lawyer. Also SNL host, but you're a resident lawyer, and I'm sensing you can make the argument that Ohio State belongs in the conference championship and in the CFP, but you don't believe it in your heart.
No, because I actually do, because I think the reason for rules is fairness. And what feels fair to me when a team is the best but hasn't been able to hit an arbitrary number to prove that is that they still get what they would have gotten for proving they're the best with 1 more game, which is what they would have done. So to me, this is fair.
Here's my thinking. We've seen games come together in 3 days. Coastal Carolina and BYU just had the game of the year came together in a week. Could the conference have asked them to play 1 more game? I know In the rules, it was, okay, you have to play in conference while we're just making up new rules as we go along. Texas A&M is free, Frank Isola. Coastal Carolina is free.
I agree. You know what? Ohio State would be up for it, and chances are Ohio State would win the game. Then they'll play in the Big Ten championship.
I don't know if Ohio State would be up for it. I think Texas A&M would be up for it. I know Coastal Carolina would be up for it. Clinton Yates, last word on this.
Yeah, I just don't believe that Ohio State needs to play another game to prove to me they belong in the playoffs. They're that good. Everybody knows it. The Big Ten should be behind them in that.
Sarah Spain, I know you and Fitz on your radio show, you talked about this. Having an open week at the end of a season, why not have teams like Coastal Carolina who want to prove they belong schedule an extra game? Yeah. I like that idea on the radio show. I like it right here, even though you didn't get a chance to say it because I said it before you could. We'll move on. How about the AFC North right now? Let's talk NFL. The conference playoff standings. Because division means less when you have a greater chance of sending 3 teams to the playoffs, look like this. Baltimore, on the strength of the win over the Cowboys, still on the outside. Steelers, you know, they went back this week and have questions. And Cleveland, the most consistent, stout, complete team of the bunch right now. Frank, how do you see it all after week 13?
You know what? The Pittsburgh Steelers, I still trust them, even though that defense isn't strong enough. They had a 4th and 1 the other day. They convert that. They're still undefeated. But say this about Baltimore, and I think Lamar Jackson. I think his confidence might have been shaken, but the way that he played last night, it wasn't just the run. That was a beautiful pass that he threw in the 3rd quarter for a touchdown. So maybe they're starting to peak at the right time because Pittsburgh isn't. But if you're asking me today, I still like Pittsburgh. I trust them more.
Baltimore may be peaking at the right time after beating the Dallas Cowboys last night. Tim Calishaw, I guess that invites you into the discussion.
I don't know if they're peaked at the right time so much as they played the right team at the right time. The team that has given up 393 points, a league high this season. I think, honestly, this thing has been fluid in the North, and the Cleveland Browns are surging past the Steelers. We've talked about Pittsburgh before. You know, they almost lost to Dallas. They had trouble putting away a Baltimore team with Trace McSorley and RG3 playing quarterback. And now they finally lost to Washington, whereas Cleveland's got the best offensive line in the NFL. They run it on everybody, and they showed this week, hey, if you sit back there, Baker will throw it on you. I think the Browns, I don't want to jump on that bandwagon too hard because we all fell off it a year ago.
Yeah, I know. But it sounds like you're jumping, and that's enough for me. Clinton Yates.
They have caught the Steelers at this point.
Wow.
What changes to me in that division is not who's at the top, it's on the interim with the power rankings. I believe the Browns have jumped the Ravens as a result of that win last week. But let's not forget what happened to the Steelers in that regard. But I do think the Browns have really advanced. I mean, listen, they execute and beat bad teams. They put that all together and beat a good one this week. So not taking anything away from
Sarah Spain?
Yeah, to me, it's definitely between the Steelers and the Browns. The Browns had a great signature win against the Titans. Before that, the teams they had beaten had a combined win percentage of .19. The teams they lost to, almost 70% win percentage, and by a combined 72 points in 3 games is what they lost to those good teams by. They need to beat some more good teams before I believe in the Browns.
True.
Steelers are flawed, but they're the best right now.
Those statistics that you just brought up, they all apply, but the other teams have statistics that apply to them too. This is Baltimore's first win in a month. And Pittsburgh is playing one-possession games versus just about everybody for the last month. Frank Isola, last word.
You know, Tim brought up a good point. You know, Tennessee was basically daring Baker Mayfield to beat them, and I think that's what's going to happen from here on out. Now, he was terrific, and I want to give Kevin Stefanski a lot of credit. So that's what it comes down to me. Who do you trust here? Lamar Jackson, Ben Roethlisberger, or are you going to trust Baker Mayfield? Right now, Baker is the iffy one, but he was terrific against a really good team.
Is he really the iffy one over the last month of football? Is he really, though?
Overall,
one more thing from last night.
Body of work.
The latest on Des Bryant. His positive test and pull off the field in warm-ups, it leaves more questions than answers. Inconclusive tests, timing of tests, contact tracing protocol. He was seen hugging and with others before this game. Visual evidence of that is now kind of hard to find. The NFL has thresholds for these meetings. An example of that, 15 minutes in length or it's not flagged. So those did not meet the threshold last night. Clinton Yates, your view of how it happened here.
In the frog and hot water analogy, we are in the frog soup portion of the program because, look, if a guy tests positive whilst on the field after ostensibly hugging members of both teams, you would think there would be more consideration to the game actually getting canceled. Alas, that has not occurred. However, Dez going home and tweeting all about it and getting frustrated and getting the wine going, that was more entertaining than the daggone game. So I'm happy Dez was able to tweet through it. We love to see it.
Tim Kalishaw.
I do feel sorry for Dez. He has literally waited 3 years for that game last night to play that team, and he didn't get the opportunity at the last second. I don't think any of his interactions, so quick that they were before the game, are going to affect anything. But the league looks really weird when you're calling a player off the field in warm-ups saying, no, you're out for this game. It feels like Justin Turner in the 7th inning of a World Series game to me.
Sarah Spain.
Yeah, or feels like Rudy Gobert, right, in the NBA. But the difference is now we have tons of protocol, and now we have what we consider the metrics for contact tracing and close contacts. As bad as it looked, and as much as I was ready to jump on the league as well, they according to all reports, used the exact same system they've used for any other positive test. It just happened in a much shorter amount of time, and because of that, we all reacted differently. I feel terrible for Dez. By all accounts, the league handled this the way they would any other. It just is always going to look weird for us in this moment to consider that you need to have a sustained 15 minutes with someone for that to be considered the most likely to be risky.
And Frank Isola?
Well, we all can understand why Des Bryant would be disappointed. He wants to play. He's playing against his former team. They did the right thing pulling him off the field. Remember this about the NFL, to Sarah's point. On Thanksgiving, we all thought that game was going to be played. That's in prime time. It's Pittsburgh. It's Baltimore. There's no way they're going to move that game. They ended up moving it 2 times. So I think the NFL, for the most part, has done a pretty good job trying to navigate its way through a difficult situation.
Okay. You know, it's good to have thresholds and good to have protocol, and that's ostensibly created with the knowledge from medical professionals. But here's one thing that's always true. The virus doesn't so much care about your protocols and thresholds. You know, it just doesn't. And another thing about this, you know, we've talked about, okay, Justin Turner. That report that comes out a week later that doesn't get as much oxygen, that 5 more members of staff tested positive after Justin Turner. And then I saw a report after that was 9. You know, we might not hear any much more of this, but this is why these protocols exist, because it does go on for weeks and weeks. Taking a break right here. Last word from Kalishaw and his Cowboys. They got flexed out of a national primetime game in favor of the Cleveland Browns. Has that ever happened before?
And that's going to bother Jerry Jones more than the 9 losses to this point. Losing a primetime game to the Giants and the Browns.
Buy or sell is next.
Flex.
Illinois 83, Duke 68. People trying to tell you this is an upset? That's the number 6 team rolling number 10. Illinois is good. Look at the creativity there. Upset is what Coach K was after questioning how college basketball is played through COVID and everything that's come with it. Take a listen.
Basically, it was more of a mentality of get as many games in as possible. And I would just like for the safety, the mental health and the physical health of our players and staff, for their, like, to assess where we're at.
How do you hear that, Clinton Yates?
I hear that like something sensible. I recall when the football season was starting, I said on this program, well, what about the basketball season? I recall when people said that there was a plan for March, I was like, well, what about right now? It's obviously come to the court at this point. However, I'm selling Coach K specifically because when I'm watching him get whooped by the best team in the Big Ten, he keeps pulling his mask down to talk to his guys in the huddle. What are you doing? It's one or the other. Be consistent.
Okay, Tim Kalishaw.
I hear it as an important statement from an important figure, obviously, about mental health. We focus too much on, well, these college kids, the ones that get sick, they're right back. Nobody dies from it, essentially, in college. But we don't know much about the mental health long-term effects of being isolated and being told the college students are leaving campus. You've got to stay and play basketball. Do they all want to do that? Is that even the right thing to do?
Sarah Spain.
And not just those effects, but we also don't know the long-term effects of the virus. You might not die from it, but there are some debilitating immediate effects and the long-term ones that we still have no clue about because we haven't had time to study them. I just think it's important he's talking about this. It's an indoor sport with small rosters with no helmets or masks in the middle of winter when everything is peaking. It's not feasible. And the sooner they realize that and move on to the spring, the better.
And Frank Isola.
I know what you want from me, Tony. You want me to say that if he had Zion Williamson, Cam Reddish, and R.J. Barrett, he never would be saying this. But just because he lost Illinois. But here's the thing. I think he's being sincere. He did say in August, we need to have an NCAA tournament. Rick Pitino had said, how about May Madness? So I think he wants it to happen. I just think he wants to be cautious right now. I don't think there's anything
I think
wrong
Coach K was the one who said expand the tournament. Say every team should get in the tournament.
Yeah.
The Woody Page, every team gets in the tournament. And I don't know if
Don't
that
take
means,
advice from
you
him.
know, whether that's more reckless or less reckless, and understanding that these teams might not play enough games. I don't know. I don't know if there's an answer there, though. Yates, you brought it up. Do we have that shot of him again with the mask down? We've seen this from college basketball coaches, although when Coach K does it, it's kind of an Abraham Lincoln look. We're going to move on. Where in the world is James Harden? Arrived in Houston yesterday. Before that, yes, Vegas. I think you've seen some images of that. Things don't typically go well with this or end well. Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler. Whether this one is worse, whether he's more doing this, that's in the eyes of the beholder. But now, of course, the reporters add Philadelphia to Brooklyn as a preferred destination. What to buy, what to sell, Tim?
You know, I'm going to sell this. We're all very accustomed to extremely well-paid athletes holding out and being unhappy about things. This is a guy whose team has bent over backwards, not with just the $40 million a year, but letting him stand out there and dribble 14 times while 4 guys stand around the perimeter just in case he decides to pass. And
Wow.
you know, now that's not good enough for him. He wants to go somewhere else.
Whew. Sarah Spain?
Yeah, to piggyback off Tim, this is a team that has done everything he asked. I love player empowerment, but you're at the beginning, in the year 2 of a 4-year deal where you're making $40 million plus a year. You are hindering their ability to trade you by holding out. And on top of that, you're just out in public gallivanting around at parties during a pandemic, which would be a problem even if you were showing up for practice later testing negative. This is all combining to make even a guy that the most staunch Houston people will defend find zero empathy for.
Frank Isola?
Yeah, forget player empowerment. This is player selfishness. He's supposed to be there. He's supposed to be at work. The Houston Rockets are in a tough spot. He's basically holding them hostage. He'll eventually get traded, but here's my thing. He's willing to go to Philadelphia. He's willing to go to contender. That's really big of you. Just show up for work, get ready to play, and then at some point they'll trade
Well, Frank, this is my point. We've seen this before from countless number of other athletes. Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard was just 2 that I mentioned. Is Harden getting more disdain projected his way?
Because he's not showing up for work. It's okay to ask to be traded, but he didn't report on time. And think about what he's doing for poor Steven Silas. By the way, have the owner or the GM come out and have to talk about James Harden's status as opposed to Steven Silas.
All right, Clint Yates, it's your turn, and it appears you're not supporting what Frank's saying there. Go ahead.
Are you guys forgetting who James Harden is, the best offensive player of a generation? We're coming off all sorts of nonsense in terms of the bubble. Sorry, the guy doesn't want to show up for week 1 of NBA training camp. I mean, what is the big deal here? This is on the Rockets. He's your player. You need to figure out how to get your dudes involved. Apparently, Daryl Morey was more valuable than we realized in more than just transactions because he can actually motivate guys to show up to the facility.
No.
He's supposed to show up.
No.
Kevin Durant's
Man.
the best offensive player of this generation.
Yeah, how good is
When's
that
the last
guy?
time he played a game,
Best
Frank?
offensive player.
When's the
Nowhere
last time
in the
Kevin Durant
playoffs.
played a game?
Look at Tim Kalisha here. Kalisha know he's got 37 points. I don't need to say anything here. I'm going to sit back, watch these guys go at each other.
Stain for everybody.
You would all take James Harden on your team. You
Yates,
know that.
Isola, thanks for your time
Yeah, I
today.
would, but I don't like what he's
Kalisha
handling.
and Spain showdown.
Oh, don't give me Spain.
2
Don't
minutes.
give me Spain.
You got it. This is a tough matchup for you. So since it's been brought up, the all-time head-to-head, Sarah Spain, 9, Tim Kalishaw, 1. Oh, no one's ever ready for the Spanish Inquisition, but Rachel and Ben Kalishaw can't even go to Spain on vacation. Let's go. Alex Smith's sneakiness from the other night. I still want to talk about this. 8 seconds at the end of the half, and he saved it all. And I love the ref's call here as well.
It's like they wouldn't let Washington
Stop due to administrative issue.
Administrative issue. Crafty or cheating, Tim?
Yeah, I know everybody loves Alex Smith. Great comeback story. That's cheating to just run off the field with the ball like that. You can't do that. The ref should have called him on it.
There's Spain.
You know I'm a stickler for rules, but I don't see written in the rules exactly word for word that you can't do that. I think we just underestimated his sneakiness.
Ah, yes, we've underestimated Tim Kalishaw's ineptitude against Sarah Spain, clearly. Showdown 2. NBA dress code for the coaches. In the 70s, look at it. Larry Brown, Doug Moe, Al Attles. I mean, this is such a high level. In the 80s, Reili was the trendsetter, of course. He was the basis for Gordon Gekko in Wall Street. And 90s up until now, not much has changed. Until today, NBA is relaxing its coaching attire rules. Change you can believe in, Sarah Spain?
100% change you can believe in. They should be more comfortable. It looks absurd to wear a suit on a basketball court where giant dudes are sweating all over you. It'll be good. It'll look nice.
Don't like this rule. What are they changing to? Sports writer casual? It's not a good look for these guys to be out there just wandering around in sweatpants, or I guess they got to wear slacks.
They're not wearing
and golf
sweatpants.
shirts. I mean, okay, so maybe that's what I'm wearing right now.
Yes,
I'm not
okay. Oh, my goodness.
I want a little better dressed coach.
This is just, it's like a mental block. You got the yips in
Nothing
your
I can
Spain.
do.
30 seconds, Sarah Spain.
Well, we're all revisiting things that bring us joy and comfort during this time, The Office being one of them, and apparently so is the NFL, because first we see Baker Mayfield dropping a great Dwight Schrute quote in his press conference, and now Josh Allen has one-upped him by actually going back and forth with Rainn Wilson, who played Dwight Schrute. Noted Seahawks fan said, Josh Allen is my second favorite quarterback, and Josh Allen said, assistant favorite quarterback or assistant to the favorite quarterback? Nailed it.
And that's what she said. Look, that's going to do it, folks. We're on a 43 and a half hour break. We'll see you tomorrow around the horn.